Life below the waist. Time, now, place, here, in this theater.
In his autobiography, Michael Crichton wrote, "It's not easy to cut through a human head with a hacksaw." I guess that's one of the reasons he quit medicine and turned to writing books with predictable plot lines and multi-million-dollar screenplays about scientifically improbable situations. But about this one thing, he's right. I've had enough surgical experience to know that taking a hacksaw to someone's skull would be difficult. Difficult and messy. Having said that, I think it's important that you know just how much I would love to take a hacksaw to my mother's skull.
Come back, live at home.
Do I look like the kind of person who needs to live at home? Do I look like I bag groceries at the local supermarket? She has trouble remembering that I've been living on my own for quite some time now. But that really doesn't matter to her. I live halfway across the country, which means I am mercifully beyond the reach of her meddling, manipulative claws. She would love me to be close enough for her to drop in on me without notice.
Jillian, I'm your mother. I care about you. Are you sure you're happy?
What is she thinking? Bitch.
I bet I know just what you're thinking. Oh, come on. I'd be thinking it too if I were sitting where you are. CBD, right? CBD. Cute but dumb. That's okay. I really don't mind people taking a long look at me, noticing my physical attributes and thinking that's where I begin and end. From where I stand, it gives me the upper hand. I'm no threat. I just go through my day looking pretty. Nobody cares. Because that's all they see me doing. The other day, I had just finished my workout and I'm walking through the locker room and I hear,
Hey, Trevor. Nice ass. Looking pretty.
med school is a great place for me to be. I blend in with all the other CBDs. The difference is they are cute. They're actually dumb. No kidding. I mean, you think med students can't be stupid? Let me tell you. Some of the dumbest people I have ever met have been in med school. So you see, I step in, I wow them with my good looks and smarts, they almost don't know what hit them. Oh, hey, totally off the subject, but you know what is so cool about eventually becoming a doctor? I'll get to see cute guys, totally naked. Well, not that that's why I want to become a doctor. Well, not really. Anyway, more on that later.
Every day, I wake up, every single day, I imagine that this will be the day that I will figure everything out. This will be the day when everything in my life will finally make sense. Obviously, I haven't been successful because if I were, then I wouldn't wake up every day imagining that this will be the day that I figure everything out. There can really only be one of those days in each of our lives. And I think for most people, that day is their last day, the day they die. For me, I'm shooting for a day somewhere on this side of eternity. What can I say? I like to stay ahead of the curve. So, I get up today, quite early as usual, and I notice that already at 5:45 a.m. the message waiting light on my phone is blinking. And this can only mean one thing. One of my students won't be in class. Probably a student who has a project or presentation or speech due. Now, rather than simply coming to class and saying they aren't ready, they feign illness. I haven't yet heard the message. No matter. It will go something like this.
Professor Rossi, I'm really sick. I have a fever, and I'm really achy, and my nose is running. I have diarrhea, and I totally can't make it today.
Now, I can understand this. I can understand anything.
Act 1. Jillian. Trevor is in Jillian's playing area facing upstage. Slacks down at his ankles, his underwear around his knees. Jillian is wearing a white physician's smock and stethoscope. She has on a pair of latex exam gloves that she starts to remove as the lights come up. She carries Trevor's medical chart.
Trevor,
Yes?
you can get dressed now.
You're not going to tell anyone, are you?
No.
That doesn't sound very convincing.
Oh, I promise I won't tell anyone. I won't even make a note of it in your chart.
Okay, well, I do massage.
You're a massage therapist?
Not quite. Most of my clients would laugh if they heard me described as a therapist. I don't really think they care much about therapy. They're more interested in a little of this and a little of that, and then
Trevor, I get the picture. No kidding?
No shit, Doc.
Well, that sounds, interesting. How did you come into, how did you get into that line of work?
Now that's a good question.
Let me, get that blood work. And, let me guess, you really didn't think you had a hernia?
Well, since you asked, nope, no hernia. You just look like you could use a little fun in your life right about now.
The lights transition. Trevor exits to his playing area. Jillian removes her physician's smock. We are in her apartment. She is dressed casually. She crosses to a rack of plants. After a few moments, she picks up one of the plants and speaks to the audience.
If it weren't for my mother, the only thing I'd be worrying about right now is whether the chocolate raspberry soufflés I was planning for this evening's menu would rise to the occasion. Instead, I'm looking down throats, feeling for lumps, and writing prescriptions for Prozac. My mother is a steamroller with a face. In her eyes, she has all the answers when it comes to me, my life, and my happiness. She knows what's best for me, what I should be doing for a living, what will make me happy. I, of course, am incapable of deciding when or knowing how I could be happy. How could I possibly be happy? I've yet to be married off to another professional, high-wage earner type. I don't have a man in my life. I'm not living with her, so therefore I can't possibly be happy. I wanted to be a chef. My mother had other ideas. Now, I'm a physician with a successful practice in family medicine.
She picks up one of the plants. She puts the plant down and continues.
Yes. My mother sees all, knows all.
I'm only your mother, but I care about you.
Too bad she has lousy eyesight. Bitch. I think this to myself, of course. Even when I'm alone, I can only think this to myself. Saying it out loud is just too much for me. Although, that could change. I could change. I could. You bitch! You manipulative bitch! Telephone call after telephone call. She nudges me just a little closer to the edge. Push, push. Nudge, nudge. Bitch. I've had so many unspoken thoughts in my life. There have been so many times I have just swallowed my feelings. My mother's not so subtle hints and nudging started during my last 2 years in high school. Why do I want to be a chef? I won't make much money. I won't be respected. I'll have no status in society. Will someone go tell that to Julia Childs or Wolfgang Puck? But did I once say I want to be a chef? I don't want to be a doctor? No. I instead was the dutiful, obedient daughter. I went to college. I majored in pre-med. I did well and was miserable. I had decided during my senior year at Princeton that I wasn't going to do a med school despite my high-priced pedigreed education. I'd take my Ivy League degree and go to culinary arts school and be a chef. Nudge, nudge, push, push. Again, I swallowed my feelings. I took the med school admissions test on a whim. No studying. And wouldn't you know it, 96th percentile. So I made a bunch of half-hearted applications to medical schools and ended up getting accepted. I went. Finished. Then I had a great revelation. Don't go to a residency program. Do something that mattered to me. My mother hated that. I loved that she hated that. I got accepted into a graduate program in landscape architecture. Oh, it was so much fun. I've always liked plants, but after a year of the program and occasional phone calls from you-know-who, I started to have major doubts about my ability to get a decent job that paid decent money. I had about $120,000 in student loans I'd have to start repaying. I panicked. I was just a little bit afraid of ending up with a job where my main responsibility would be to ask, will that be paper or plastic? So I decided I should give medicine another try and got into a residency program, and here I am, a real doctor. I can remember reading somewhere that everything we do is motivated either by fear or love. Brushing your teeth, walking the dog, watering the lawn, everything. That's it. Fear or love. Fear or love.
Jillian picks up a small frame that is on one of the shelves among the plants. In it is a small photograph and 2 slips of paper.
Your luck will soon be at a high point. The wise thing to do is to be prepared for the unexpected. 2 of my favorite fortunes, retrieved from fortune cookies at the end of mediocre meals at 2 ordinary Chinese restaurants. I like the fortunes, though. I keep these 2 here next to this photograph of someone. When things get tough at the office, I try to remind myself that everything in life is not a curse or a burden. These 2 fortunes help. I had to give a patient bad news the other day. Nothing unusual about that. His condition was irreversible, the diagnosis was serious, the prognosis grim. I told him, and all he did was let a small smile sneak out from between his lips and say,
"Well, at least now I know."
While I was quick to start on my usual don't give up hope speech, he stopped me almost as quickly as I had begun.
Save it.
Mr. Rossi, there's no reason to give up hope just yet, I told him. Of course, there was no hope.
Jillian, why do you insist on calling me Mr. Rossi?
Well, because this is a professional environment, and you should be calling me Dr. Powers.
You'll forgive me if I ignore that last statement, won't you?
Well, of course I could forgive him. You can forgive a man almost anything when you realize they probably won't be around 6 months or so from now. He asked me a few questions. He was ready for the news, I think. I provided a few answers. Insignificant and inadequate answers.
So I guess you could say the news is grave. Grave?
I thought he was getting freaked out and might go into shock. I reached into my pocket for my prescription pad. Here, let me give you a script for some Valium. I started scribbling and he said,
Grave. As if I'll be in one soon?
oh my God, I thought. Grave. As in I'll be in one soon. The words were still hanging in the air. I wanted to scream so loud that Hattie Miller could hear me in the waiting room. You have no fucking idea what this means? Do you have no idea that you're going to die? Do you have no idea that every person who loves you, your family, your friends, do you have any idea what this means to them? But of course I didn't shout or say fucking or say any of it. I just, as I have done so many times before in my life, swallowed my feelings and kept my mouth shut. He smiled.
I don't think I'll be needing the Valium. Thanks. Call me this weekend, okay?
I nodded, and he left the exam room. I just sat there for a while. By the time I had gotten up and walked out, he was gone. Carla, my nurse, told me that Hattie Miller was waiting for me in the exam room number 3. I motioned to her that I'd be there in a minute, ran into my bathroom, and shut the door. And then I threw up, as if my body were trying to expel any conscious thought or memory of what had just happened. What I wanted to do now was to sneak out the back door, jump into my Audi, and run away. What I did instead was to quickly rinse out my mouth, pop in a search, pick up Hattie Miller's chart, and into exam room 3 I went. Hattie Miller. So named because she was never without a colorful, large-brimmed hat. No sooner do I shut the door and Hattie screams out,
Dr. Jillian, I think I got immaculate disconception.
Okay. There are several things you need to know about Hattie. 1, she refuses to acknowledge that I have a last name. It's never Dr. Powers, only Dr. Jillian. It's somewhat endearing, actually. 2, Hattie is a hopeless hypochondriac. 3, she is a totally committed fundamentalist Christian. 4, she keeps her copy of the Holy Bible next to her copy of everything you always wanted to know about every disease known to the human body but were afraid to ask. And somewhere along the line, the hypochondriac and the religious fundamentalist combine to form what I now see before me. Every time she comes in, there's always something terribly wrong, and this terribly wrong thing sounds much more like a verse from the Bible than a medical condition. After I listen to her, patiently, give me a list of physical complaints, I deduce she thinks she has been afflicted with macular degeneration, not immaculate disconception. I assure her she does not have macular degeneration, a rather nasty eye condition that can lead to blindness. The last time she was here, it was,
Dr. Jillian, I got smiling mighty Jesus.
And the way she said it made me want to jump up and praise Jesus right along with her. Smiling mighty Jesus turned out to be what she thought was a case of spinal meningitis. And there was the time I walked into the exam room and she was practically singing.
Good God, Lord Almighty, Dr. Jillian, I think there are fireballs in the Eucharist.
I could just picture her sitting in a church pew staring intently at an altar with a cross amid a ring of fire. Now, Hattie didn't have fireballs in the Eucharist. She did have fibroids in her uterus, a devastating diagnosis from which she did not recover. I got a page later in the day. Mr. Rossi wanted the Valium after all. He sounded terrible, shaky, scattered, manic. I asked him if he wanted me to stop by on my way home from work. He said that he'd rather be alone, although that's not at all how he sounded. He called me at home later. I was in bed. He was crying, not heaving sobs, but gentle tears. Of resignation, perhaps.
Please, Jillian, please promise me you won't let me suffer. Please, just promise me that.
He wasn't desperate, but certain. I was only half awake, the physician half of me. I launched right into my Dr. Powers mode. Don't give up. You could do chemo. You may be around much longer than me. Heck, I could get hit by a bus crossing the street tomorrow. Oops.
For Christ's sake, Jillian, what horseshit. Yeah, you might get hit by a bus tomorrow on your way to work, but I've got a fully loaded Greyhound headed straight with a bullseye pointed right between my eyes, and I've got nowhere to run. There are no cures, and please don't even start on the chemo bullshit. You try walking around the house carrying a plastic bucket so you don't get sick and vomit on the living room rug. You try losing your hair, all your hair, even your eyebrows. Getting big brown bags under your eyes. You try walking around looking like Uncle Fester.
There was a long pause. He was blowing his nose and I was holding my breath, fighting back my own tears. I won't let myself cry. I was trying to think of something to say. I thought of how much right now I would rather be an architect designing the landscaping for the new art museum or a chef planning the menu for a high society wedding. I didn't need an experience like this to remind me just how much I hated being a doctor.
You still there?
Yes. I was still there. I had no idea what to say, but I was still there. Uncle Fester? I asked.
You know, the bald guy. No hair, no eyebrows, chalk white skin, on the Addams family. Always dressed in black and had dark circles under his eyes.
Oh, yeah. Well, what if you planned your chemo around Halloween?
Not bad.
You laughed a soggy laugh.
I still think I'll pass.
Thought you would.
Promise me, please. Promise me.
What could I say? First and foremost, do no harm. That is the first sentence of the Hippocratic Oath, and it was playing over and over again in my head like elevator music. I couldn't turn it off. It would be unethical. This is a friend, goddammit, more than a friend. Could I really sit by and watch him suffer a lingering death and pass it off as an ethical dilemma? Over and over again, quickly, loudly in my head. First and foremost, do no fucking harm. Promise me, please, promise me. Promise me you won't let me suffer, please. Promise me, please.
She picks up one of the potted plants and throws it down, so that the pot shatters. The soil and plants splatter everywhere.
You see, this is a mess. A broken pot, dirt everywhere, and a ficus that will most probably not survive. But you see, all I have to do is drive to my local garden store and buy another. It will even look the same pot, same plant. There's no store that sells friends. No easy fix. No easy replacement. Okay. I promise. I took my nurse Carla out to dinner one evening. I wasn't complaining about how much I hated medicine. It wasn't the first time. She was listening patiently and finally reminded me that I take home more in a month as much as she made in 3. She suggested I go to work at a convenience store for a year and then talk about how much I hated medicine. I opened my mouth to say how upset I was by her response and what seemed like a lack of concern for how I felt. What I meant to say was, well, rip me apart, why don't you? Instead, what came out was, rip me a heart, why don't you? I laughed. I haven't been able to get that thought out of my head. Rip me a heart. How would I go about doing that if I wanted to? I understand the basic fundamentals of cardiothoracic surgery, but that would be ripping out a heart or repairing a heart. We used to date. Mr. Rossi and I used to date. I was still in medical school. After we broke up, we had several rough years, including an entire year where we did not speak to each other. Then suddenly things changed. Disraeli was right. This is the great physician who heals. Time is the great physician who heals all wounds. In the last few years, we became really close, so when Mr. Rossi moved here, the medical group I'm a part of was on his health plan, and I offered to be his doctor. He was just asking me to recommend a good doc from the list, and I offered instead. If I would have had any idea how this would have turned out, there's no way I would have offered. I had no idea, and neither did he. I had no idea how we would be able to help each other through this difficult experience. I've always liked the idea of helping people, but it is messy. Friendship problems, relationship problems, medical problems, it's all messy. Heartbreak, disappointment, and bodily fluids. You know what's really strange? I'm a great doctor. Most of my patients would say so. Mr. Rossi would say so. Most of my patients love me. They tell me so. They send me gifts at Christmas, champagne at New Year's, and candy at Easter. I get referral after referral. I'm a great listener. Tell me your problems might as well be tattooed on my forehead. It's amazing what people will tell you sometimes, even if it's totally unrelated to their health. I have several really gorgeous patients, men and women. I have one really cute guy who comes in fairly often to get an HIV test. When I see his name on the daily appointment roster, I have to admit I get a little giddy with anticipation. Don't worry, I'm the epitome of professionalism. During one appointment, I said to this gorgeous hunk of a patient, you know, Trevor, every 6 months is generally good enough. Now understand, I don't mind seeing him more than that.
Well, I like to be safe, and, well, to tell you the truth, Doc, this is confidential. Right, Doc?
I assure him it is.
Well, it's sort of an occupational hazard.
Of course, I know he is a medical student, so my first thought is that he works in a hospital or lab or something. And then I notice the impish smile he's trying so hard to hide. And what occupation might that be, I ask? He opens his mouth as if he were going to say something, and nothing. Just a fantastic smile and beautiful white teeth. I am your doctor, I say in as parental a voice as I can muster. There's a pause. Silence. And then I suddenly realize I'm caught in a stare. I think the mystics would call it being in a transcendental state. There's something I forgot to mention. Every time Trevor comes to see me, I have to remind myself that I am a physician and that he is my patient. Besides, he's gay. Okay, he's obviously an incurable flirt, but I know he's gay. You see, I look at a lot of naked men in the course of a day. It's my job. And although I can't offer any empirical evidence, the gay guys do tend to be cuter, have better bodies, and no reservations whatsoever about dropping their pants. So, there's Trevor, standing in front of me. And there's me, trying not to stare. I try, and sometimes I fail. Even I could be seduced by the dark side of medicine.
Hey, Doc, not to change the subject, but I think I might have hurt myself.
Really? How?
Well, the other day I was helping this friend move, and since then I've been having this, pain.
Pain? Pain in your groin? You think you might have a hernia?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Stand up, hands off, slide your shorts down.
Trevor follows Jillian's instructions. He lets his slacks drop to the floor and pulls his underwear down around his knees. As he does this, Jillian reaches for a pair of exam gloves and puts them on. Despite her best attempts at professionalism, she can't help but notice Trevor and how good he looks naked.
Cough. Again, please. And what's so funny?
Nothing. Just something I remembered from 8th grade.
I don't think I want to know. So, what is this occupational hazard?
Well,
Trevor,
yes.
you can get dressed now.
You promise you won't go spreading rumors about me?
What? Of course. I promise.
Okay, well, I do massage.
You're a massage therapist?
Not quite. Most of my clients would laugh if they heard me described as a therapist. I don't really think they care much about therapy. They're more interested in a little of this and a little of that, and then
Trevor, I get the picture. No kidding?
No shit, Doc.
Well, that, sounds, interesting. How did you come into, get into that line of work?
Now that's a good question.
Let me get you that order for your blood work. And let me guess. You really didn't think you had a hernia.
Well, since you asked. Nope, no hernia. You just look like you could use a little fun in your life right about now.
I tried to choke back a laugh. But we did. Both of us laugh. Trevor always makes me laugh. He always has something flirtatious or outrageous to say. Mr. Rossi always made me laugh too. But not for much longer, I'm afraid.
Jillian uses her hand to gently scoop up the dirt and plant from the remains of the broken pot. It is a tender process.
Many of my colleagues talk about death in terms that would make clinical seem warm and fuzzy. They talk about a patient expiring, or lapsing, or reaching end term.
Yes, I had a rough night. Mr. Smith expired.
Like a 50 cents off coupon for a dozen eggs. I still tease myself with the idea of trading in my white doctor's smock for a white chef's tunic.
She sits on the stage and continues to gather the remains of the plant, soil, and pot as the lights fade. End of act. Act 2. Trevor. Time, now. Place, Clarendon's apartment. Trevor wearing spandex shorts. Clarendon dressed casually.
Why are you so interested in medicine and becoming a doctor?
Shit, man. I just want to make a bunch of money, see cute patients naked, and help people. Oh yeah, almost forgot. Makes a great topic for bar conversation. But first off, you gotta admit I'm a total knockout, right? Right?
Oh, yes. Right.
So guys are always coming up to me in bars. I always talk to them no matter what they look like. You know, almost everyone wants to know what I do, so I say I'm in medical school. It always gets their attention. It just sounds cool.
Well, aren't you afraid of dealing with death?
No. I think death can be a hoot.
What do you mean funny? Do you think that death can be funny?
Sure, why not? Just about everything else in life can be funny.
Just how would that work?
Not so fast.
Trevor simply smiles as the lights transition. Trevor crosses to his apartment. His open gym bag is on the floor. There is a full-length mirror and a bed.
From the day I had my first physical for the swim team in 8th grade, there was just no question at all that I would be a doctor. And there we were, all lined up in the guys' locker room, all of us would-be swimmers. I could smell chlorinated water in gym clothes that should have been washed days ago. It was a good smell. And there was this doctor, the older guy, retired, going down the line of us one by one, all dressed in nothing but our underwear. And one by one he cupped his hand around the scrotum of each nervous kid and said, "Turn your head and cough." One nervous, squeaky little cough after another. Till he got to me. He hesitated a little before he asked me to cough. I was totally erect. So he just reached down there, cupped, and said,
"Cough, please."
I did. And that was my inspiration. Bunch of guys in their underwear. The image of that line of 8th grade swimmers in their underwear was all the inspiration I needed. More on that later. My mother and my father and my 4 sisters were always so proud of me. I mean, straight A's in high school, 800 out of 800s on my SATs, a 4.0 GPA all through college, top scores on my medical school admissions test, 8 acceptance letters to 8 medical schools. Who would have thought that the image of those near-naked swimmers was my primary motivating force? Because my family knows I'm gay. They don't know I'm working my way through medical school as a masseur. Not sure how they'd react to that. But they're totally cool with the gay stuff. I came out to them right after college, on my way to med school. That was quite a drive. Now we talk about it a lot. Yeah, every time I go home to visit, usually over the holidays. And there are questions about school, about what I'm learning, and about my love life. I avoid that question every time with, "I'm really too busy with school to worry about a boyfriend." They buy it. More on that later. Anyway, my first boyfriend, Tony. Well, he wasn't really a boyfriend. He was my next door neighbor, a few years older than me. And Tony would always talk about wanting to join the Army after high school. He was in junior ROTC and had to wear his uniform once a month to school. And I knew what that meant. That he loved the military look, really turned him on. He'd have to wear his uniform jacket all the time because he'd have this constant hard-on. That meant he'd be passing me a note at lunch.
"Meet me at my place after school. I need you."
He'd always misspell meat, M-E-A-T. He was a lousy speller, but a great lay. He said he thought he'd feel safe in the Army because no one would think he was gay. Now, the first adult I had sex with was this really cool Marine named Sammy. Big, tough, and rough. I was looking at the gay magazines in a bookstore, had a total hard-on. Sammy walked up beside me and reached for one of the gay magazines, which just happened to be right at the level of my crotch. As he went to grab the magazine, he rubbed the bulge in my pants. Took his time about it, too. Shit, I thought I would faint. I followed him out to his car, and we drove to this church that was way out in the middle of nowhere. And that's where we did it. In the back of his Jeep Cherokee in the church parking lot. And by the time the car came to a stop, we were already kissing and all over each other. It was really hot. He had a nearly shaved head, and he loved to rub his head over the small of my back, down to my butt. That was just the beginning. Wow. So after we're all sweaty and exhausted, and he's about to take me home, and he says,
Please, dude, please don't tell anyone about this, okay?
I thought to myself, why the hell would I want to tell anybody about this? I mean, I'd rather keep this total hunk a secret and have them all to myself. And I was just about to say this to Sammy, but I think he mistook my silence for something else. Because before I knew it, he had taken a $20 bill out of his wallet and shoved it into my hand and said,
Please, man, please don't tell anyone.
well, okay, man, I won't. And I never did. Not a soul. I lost touch with Sammy, and that was that. Well, that $20 bill gave me an idea. Sammy was so willing to part with that 20, maybe the other guys would be too. You see, I had toyed with the idea of trying to get into the porno biz, but then what would I say to my mom at Thanksgiving? And I decided not to become a porno star. But I think I could have if I wanted to. I mean, I've always been cute. I've always had a big dick. Well, after puberty hit anyway. And I've always had a great body. No shit. I think I was born with major pecs and ripped abs. Making pornos? Getting naked and jerking off in front of other people, hot lights and voyeuristic cameramen, it's not my idea of making cash. There's too many people in one room at one time. I'd probably lose my erection. Yeah, right. So instead of becoming a porno star, I became a male escort. But before I became a male escort, I became a masseur. No, my. More on that later. So the first time I realized that I like men was about the same time that they started noticing me. No, wait, just a minute. It was before that. Yeah, long before that. I was in...
He pauses to think, reaches in his gym bag and pulls out a joint and lighter. He lights the joint and inhales deeply. As he holds in the smoke, he continues.
Kindergarten. Yep. My family and I were visiting a family friend for dinner one Sunday afternoon. They had this large dining room table, and I kept looking at the 4 brothers sitting at the table. 4. All cute. And me with 4 sisters, 4 older sisters. I mean, I think that's how my fascination with guys started. I mean, all around me growing up, I had nothing but bras and panties. I mean, I wanted to see guys, a few jockstraps maybe. Oh yeah, the dining room table. So I remember crawling under the dining room table. And after a few minutes, my mom calls out,
Trevor, what are you doing under the table?
Eventually, I resurface. Yep, no doubt about it. I like guys. In high school and in college, people treated me pretty much like a pretty face with no brains. Maybe they just thought that I was pretty and that's as far as it went. Come to think of it, most people treat me like that. I got a pretty face, a great bod, so of course I ain't got nothing upstairs, just empty space. That's just so not true. Okay, I earn money right now as a masseur / male escort, but I'm simply exploiting my own potential. Isn't that what we're taught to do? I mean, from the time we're little, boys are given trucks to play with, girls get Susie Homemaker bake sets and Barbie dolls. You know, I really wanted an anatomically correct Ken doll when I was a kid. Yeah, and I wanted accessories, really sexy underwear, briefs, jock straps, thongs. So one day I took my allowance, ran down to Kmart, and bought myself a Ken doll. Imagine my disappointment. Yeah, well, first of many. Much more on that later. My massage appointments all have just about the same script. I arrive in a tight tank top, baseball cap, spandex shorts, pair of Nikes, no socks, gym bag in hand. I ring the doorbell, and before anyone even answers the door, I smile. I get this to die for cute expression on my face. Door opens and the guy on the other side, well, there were a few times it was a woman, looks me up and down. I'm asked in. Along with what comes pretty close to a traditional massage, I usually do something that is illegal in every state except Nevada. Usually. There are times that I don't. So, after, there is some small talk, you know, how about this weather, you sure are cute, that wasn't what I expected, I've never done anything like this before. Well, I play along and say all the right things, and this is followed by an awkward pause. And then I usually ask for the money. Usually. There were 2 times when I didn't ask for any money. Once I suspected the guy was a cop. Well, he wasn't, but I was close. He was a security guard at a local Walmart. Hey, I gotta be careful. I mean, all I need is an arrest record and I can say goodbye to my medical career. One other time I didn't take any money was well, let's just say it was a special circumstance. More on that later. So I take the money, usually $2.50 a pop. You know, sometimes I find myself wondering why people are willing to pay me for something they could just handle themselves. Well, but I know I'm well worth it. I mean, especially if you need an escape. And if you need an escape, I'm your man, boy, or whatever else you want me to be. I'm famous for providing escapes. Not all of my clients are rich. I mean, yeah, most of them do have money, but some of them are just curious. Everybody has their own reasons. That's fine with me. I'm not really into reasons as much as I am into how much and where. Most of the time, anyway. See, one of the promises I made myself when I started this masseur/escort gig was that it would be strictly about the money. Not about the sex, certainly not about the affection. No happy ever afters, no Hallmark moments, no Carpenter songs. No. More on that later. I just wanted to make as much money as I could in as little time as possible. So that by the time I got done with medical school and started my medical practice, I wouldn't be hip deep in debt. Oh shit. I went to my doctor the other day. I think I totally freaked her out. But she's cool. I go to see her about every 3 months or so just to get tested, you know, just to be extra safe. So this last time I was there, she asked me why I get tested so often. Thought I'd tell her the truth about the masseur gig. Thought she was going to fall over. And she got all embarrassed and turned red. But no, I also noticed that she always checks me out. What the heck? I like the attention. And that's part of why I like the masseur gig. It beats working at 7-Eleven. I get money, attention, and occasionally I have some real fun. But the money was what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to start my residency debt-free. I promised myself that it would be about the money. No getting involved or too wrapped up in anybody else's life. I mean, I told myself that there's no reason that I should. Certainly no reason that I would want to. No getting involved. No caring, no deep heart-to-hearts. I mean, a little conversation, sure, but nothing that meant anything. Every rule has an exception. Promises often get broken. Even promises to yourself. The appointment that broke the rule. Heck, broke 2 rules. No, 3. Shit. Who cares how many rules I broke? On this appointment, I show up looking fabulous, of course, and I ring the doorbell, and I stand there doing my typical routine with my usual smile and my to-die-for cute expression. No answer. So, I ring the doorbell again, And I really hope that I haven't been stood up, because this guy sounded real nervous when he made the appointment, and I would be just a bit pissed off to think that I drove to his place only to find that I got stood up. And my cell phone rings. I let it ring. It keeps ringing. Stop ringing, damn it. I'm just about to answer it when the door opens. Now, I've seen first-time customers look surprised, but this guy really looked surprised. And he was nervous. I mean, he was really nervous. For a few minutes, he just stood there, looking at me. Wasn't sure if he was totally freaked or just liked what he saw. He just kept looking, and I just kept smiling. So, you just want me to stand out here, or were you thinking of maybe asking me in? I said. For a few seconds, he still wasn't sure what to do, so I kept smiling. I see that he's trying to say something.
Would you,
I finished the sentence for him because it sounds to me like he wasn't going to. Would I like to come in? Now, I can't quite put my finger on it, but there is something about this timid, I've never done this before scene that is turning me on. Maybe it's that he obviously isn't a jaded, predictable John. Maybe that there's something about him that I really like. And I can feel myself slipping into a place where I might really give it. No. Wait. I remind myself this is a job, not a date. Things happened sort of fast once I was in his place. The first thing I notice is that he responds to how I touch him as if every square inch of his body is an erogenous zone. I touch his forearm. I touch his heel. I touch his elbow. You get the picture. I mean, it was actually kind of wonderful. It was fun and different, at least from my past experiences with doing this kind of thing. We were done. We just sat there for a bit. Now it's usually at this point that either my client can't wait to get me out the door, or I feel like making a mad dash. But I had the notion that he wanted to hold on to what had just happened. And maybe, just maybe, hold on to me. Just a job. Just a job. I asked him how he heard about me. He tells me. I ask him his name. So, what's your name?
Claire.
Claire? Isn't that a girl's name?
No, not C-L-A-I-R. C-L-A-R-E.
Oh, I say, like I care. I asked him why he decided to call me. You see, that's only one of the strange parts about meeting Claire. Although everything was set up like a business deal, it just didn't feel like one to me. He tells me why he called me, and I was a little surprised. But I thought, cool. This guy's one of a kind. Just a job, but look, I'm not just a pretty face. I have a brain, I have a heart. The pretty face is always there. The brain is on most of the time. And the heart, usually I can turn that off. This time I didn't want to. This time I wanted to listen. And I did. We talked. And we talked. And we talked. And I found myself walking into a Carpenter song. We talked. We talked. We talked. And the more we talked, the more I got totally sucked into this guy's life. I mean, he had this totally amazing outlook on life. He was a total optimist who had no reason to be an optimist. He talked about how short life was and all the stuff he needed to do. I heard him. But I don't think he really took the time to listen to himself. I got him to laugh. And he got me to cry. Real tears. I didn't want him to stop talking, and I couldn't stop talking myself. Claire was totally into me being a med student. He wanted to know why I wanted it. Shit, man. I just want to make a bunch of money, help people, and have a great topic for bar conversation.
How would that work?
Oh, really easy, I say. First, the guy comes up to me. Guys are always coming up to me in bars. I always talk to them, no matter what they look like. Almost everyone wants to know what I do, so I say I'm in medical school. That always gets their attention. It just sounds cool.
Aren't you afraid of dealing with death?
No. I think death can be a hoot.
You mean funny? You think that death is funny?
Yeah, can be.
Well, just how would that work?
Well, I can tell you my grandfather's death was funny. My mom hadn't heard from him in a few days, and she was worried about him. He wasn't answering his phone either. So she hauls me into her car, uses her key to get into his place. She opens the door, and he's sitting in his recliner in front of the TV, dead. But I can see that without even getting any further into the room. I mean, he's definitely dead.
What's funny about that?
You are so impatient. Not only was he definitely dead, he, my 86-year-old grandfather, had definitely died watching the porn channel on cable. And there he was, remote control in his hand, the porn channel on the TV. My mother's frantic. I'm laughing, I couldn't help it. I mean, he was the first dead person I ever saw, and the porn was just so funny. So the first thing my mom does is run over and turn off the TV. She's yelling and crying at the same time.
Trevor, you are not to mention this to anyone, ever. Do you understand me?
Sure, Mom. Sure. Claire smiles. I think he gets it.
Okay, that is pretty funny.
I mean, I look at my fellow soon-to-be doctors and I realize that most of them have a terrible sense of humor. I am convinced that they have no idea of much about the world outside the four walls of our classes and clinical rotations. I mean, they talk about pharmacology and biology and which attending physician is a pain in the ass and which resident is fuckable. I mean, when I'm with them, I talk about what they talk about, but I don't let them get too close to my personal life. I don't let many people see the intelligent, philosophical side. I think they take it as a weakness and try to exploit it. I hide my sensitivity. I'm good at it. Claire had a way of looking at his life and being very choosy about what he wanted to see and about what he wanted to ignore. I mean, I suppose we all do that to some degree. Claire refused to see that he was scared. And I think he needed to see that. Not dwell on it, just be aware of it. I helped him with that. No, I don't mean that I tried to scare him, not at all. I helped him. And he helped me too. By the time I left his place that night, had this funny feeling that we'd see each other again. And the next time I didn't want him to be a client. I wanted him to be a friend. It was time to go.
How much do I owe you?
Nothing, he said. Maybe it was me who owed him. When I got home, I was emptying my bag and I found a note from Claire. I must have written it and stuck it in my bag when I was in the bathroom. All it said was,
I had a great time. Lucky me. Wonderful you. We will see each other again, right?
more on that later.
The lights fade. End of act. Intermission.
Hold on. And go.
Act 3, Clarendon. Time, for the most part now, place, Clarendon's apartment. We are in the recent past. Trevor wears spandex shorts and a tank top. Clarendon is dressed casually.
So this isn't a full-time job for you?
Oh, no. Hell no. I'm a full-time med student. This is how I'm paying for it.
Oh. In which field do you plan to specialize?
Geriatrics.
Really? Geriatrics? Why?
That way I'll be sure I'm always the youngest and prettiest person in the room.
Are you serious?
I'd really like to kiss you. May I kiss you?
That would be nice. Who are you?
Trevor takes out his wallet and shows Clarendon his driver's license.
So your name really is Trevor?
Yeah. Really is.
A moment passes. We are in the present. Clarendon listens to a recorded broadcast of an NPR news program. Perhaps, all things considered, a morning edition or fresh air is heard. After a few moments of listening to the broadcast, he begins.
I really love NPR. By the way, that's NPR National Public Radio for those of you who are listener-supported radio challenged. I love NPR because listening makes me realize how much absolutely trivial stuff I don't know. I've become so terribly well-informed in the process that I amaze my friends and neighbors with spur-of-the-moment blurbs on who is doing what to whom around the world. For example, I'm listening to my local NPR station on one of the very few days they weren't asking me to give them money. The program is called Fresh Air. I happen to be cleaning my toilet bowl, by the way, as I'm listening, which is another wonderful thing about NPR. You could be cleaning your toilet bowl and get a lesson in international geopolitics at the same time. And the host, Terry Gross, is introducing her next guest. Can you imagine going through life with a name like Terry Gross? Either she's really disgusting, or there are 144 of her. So, Terry is interviewing a doctor who is talking about some exotic, obscure disease. So I listened to this doctor discuss something called right hemispheric aphasia. I learned that RHA, as he referred to it, is a brain disease that causes you to not recognize parts of your body. No kidding. So if you get this bug, you could wake up and you look at your arm and it might think it's someone else's arm, or think that your arm is a pet and just start feeding it. Okay, so there I am, cleaning the toilet bowl, learning about right hemispheric aphasia. I have to take a piss. So, I will, you know, I do what I need to do to handle this seemingly impossible task. And then all of a sudden it hits me. I don't recognize my penis. Oh my God, I've got right hemispheric aphasia and I don't recognize my own dick. So I page my doctor and she calls me back right away.
Mr. Rossi? What is it? I just hung up from talking to my mother. I'm pretty busy and I'm stressing out.
But she calls you at the office?
Yes.
I wish you could just tell her to fuck off.
Me too. So, what's up?
I think I have right hemispheric aphasia, I say. She takes me seriously.
How do you know?
I just took a piss and I don't recognize my dick.
Really? Well, when did you first notice?
Her voice just trails off and there's this dead silence on the other end of the phone. I hold my breath. 1 second, 2 seconds. And then she just busts out laughing. Poor Jillian. I haven't heard her laugh much lately. Oh, I almost forgot. I had this really erotic NPR dream the other night. I'm in this NPR station, and every single person was gorgeous. The receptionists, the announcers, the secretaries, the engineers, the gardener, the other volunteers, everyone. So there I am when this engineer, sweet face, beautiful eyes, comes up to me. He was naked. Oh yeah, buck naked. Except for a towel that was around his waist. Funny, you know, none of the other people in the room at the time, all of whom were clothed, seemed to think it was out of the ordinary. Okay, so engineer guy is sounding very earnest and pointing to a board listing and describing in detail the meaning of certain words that most people misuse. I'm being told this because every volunteer who is going on air must go through this training. Makes no difference that I'm a college professor. I still must be told the difference between anxious and eager. Of course, I know this. So we are going along just fine, him in his towel and me looking at him in his towel, and we get to the word eager. When all of a sudden his towel starts to fall down below his knees. Oh my God. It finally dawns on me just exactly what eager really means. Now you find me that NPR station and I'll pledge them my life. You forget about all those free t-shirts and coffee mugs. You give me that goddamn engineer guy. Oh. Nobody ever told me they thought there was any aspect of my life that was normal. My love life, my real life, and my dream life. Especially my erotic dream life. My very first erotic dream. It was quite strange. It involved me, a male figure skating champion, and the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four. I remember telling my grad school roommate about it, and without missing a beat, he said,
You're Catholic, aren't you?
recovering Catholic, actually. And how the hell did he know? Well, as it turns out, hell was how he knew. To him, a budding soon-to-be psychotherapist, it was obvious that the presence of the Human Torch in this erotic dream suggested my guilt through instilling the presence of a fiery punishment embodied in the persona of one of the objects of my eroticization. And this is why I never thought of becoming a psychotherapist. I could never say that to a patient with a straight face. Well, if anything could be responsible for fucking up my love life, it's the Catholic Church and my 4 miserable years in Catholic school. I remember Randy Huber, 2nd grade. I remember thinking about him, staring at him a lot. Me, 2nd grader, can you imagine? I remember that Randy noticed me staring at him. I remember Sister Assumpta looking at me, looking at Randy. Of course, at this age, and being Catholic, I had no idea what anything was called. I just knew that whatever it was called and whatever there was to do, I wanted to do it to Randy. And one day I came to school and Randy's desk was empty, and like that, Randy was gone from my life. Never stopped thinking about Randy, all through the second grade. Well, during this time of adolescence confusion and sexual dysfunction, my mother was in her snooping phase. She got a few pretty bad shocks along the way. She discovered my very first porn magazine. I know this because I had planned an after-school session of furtive masturbation, only to discover my well-used copy of Fitness Today missing. I was left with having to resort to the Sears catalog men's underwear section. Okay, so she takes my porn. She just takes it. No lectures, no threats, just icy silence. Well, my mother is visiting. Yes, well, it was unavoidable. I moved the whole way across the country and she still seems to find me. Well, the first thing she does after arriving at my house is to head directly to the kitchen and open the refrigerator.
Claire, what is there to eat? I'm hungry, but I don't know what for. Where is the butter? What is all this non-fat crap? Who ever heard of non-fat sour cream?
Clearly, my mother hasn't. She is pliable, which I like. I taught her how to say motherfucker the other day. It's quite an accomplishment being the good Catholic woman that she is. Claire. That's me, by the way. Clarendon. It's an old Celtic name for my mother's family. She'd always been fond of calling me Claire. My father really hated it.
Bart, don't call him that. It's a girl's name. He's a man. Call him Clarendon. You're the one who wanted to name him that in the first place, for Christ's sakes. Keep calling him Claire, he's going to end up being a fag.
Too late,
Now don't say things like that. He might hear you.
she'd say. Again, too late. I can remember once in a fit of teenage angst getting upset at my mom and saying something to her like, with a name like Claire, it's no wonder I don't play sports. I'll probably be gay because of that name. In fact, I knew I was quite gay way before I ever said that to her. And I think that's how I came out to her, actually. Or was that something else? Something else. Yes. Boy watching with Mom. So later, Mom and I are sitting outside a local Starbucks watching the gorgeous guys walking by. Me looking a bit more intently than she. And thankfully, we were talking about something other than my mother's colorectal health. She loves to talk about her latest colonoscopy and how the doctor said that everything up there looked just beautiful. Somehow, and feel free to call me callous, connecting the words colonoscopy and beautiful was just a little bit too much. Thankfully, this was one of those times I successfully truncated the colorectal health discussion. We instead moved on to another one of my mother's favorite topics, the why is such a wonderful person like you single topic. Each time a cute guy passed by, she leaned over and said,
Claire, what about him?
and this was her way of trying to cure me of being single. I explained that finding a boyfriend is not like buying a melon. When you pick it up and squeeze, it needs to squeeze back. She gets this.
Oh.
She moves on to another topic.
Claire, are you eating?
No. Well, at several points during her visit, Mom makes several unannounced visits to the bathroom while I am in the shower. I protest. Mom, I'm in the shower. I am naked.
So what? God, I used to change your diapers when you were naked then. What's the difference?
And I'm pretty much capable of just seeing how my mom thinks. And that's the kind of mother I'm used to. Predictable. Unlike boyfriends. Isn't there one really special person who is or was at one time an important part of your life? All the things that were so special about them, smells, small facial tics, perfectly formed lips, and how you never wanted to be the first one to pull away from a kiss. The incredible way your hands fit together, stealing sideways glances during movies. No. Nothing seems to lessen the loss. Well, you move on, sure, but again, I think we all have at least one. You know, you would think that someone who had been stepped on as often as I have been stepped on would learn. No. Just keep on riding the fall for him hard, false hope pony every chance I get. But where do you find hope when you have forgotten where to look? Where can you find love when you have forgotten how to feel? But had I? Well, I was feeling quite vividly, I might add, the initial shock of knowing the probable cause of my immediate demise. So I was feeling something, right? Trouble is, knowing what to feel and when isn't that easy to figure out. Just when you have an exigent need to grab someone and hold them and kiss them and smother them with your slurpy love, you remember something that you had been meaning to forget. Loving someone means getting hurt. 2 + 3 = 5. Ketchup belongs on hamburgers. Mustard belongs on hot dogs. And loving someone means getting hurt. These are the great truths of the universe. And here's another. All relationships end. All of them. Period. Without exception. All relationships end. One of you will leave, or one of you will die. Those are the only possible outcomes. All relationships end. Actually, it's a comforting thought. You can stop feeling long enough just to think about it. It is the truth. And in that truth is great comfort. And as soon as you realize this, you can stop wondering if your relationship is going to end. Forget about if and how it might end and just let it be. Look at it now, nurture it, savor it. Well, as boyfriends go, there weren't that many. There was one, especially, an ex-boyfriend, now gone. We almost weren't boyfriends. Ron and I. Ron was crazy for me, and I for him. But Ron was already HIV positive, terribly afraid that he would infect me, and I assured him I knew how to protect myself. But even the mere possibility that something might go wrong, and well,
I might give you AIDS,
he said to me, a plea punctuated with those kisses which are ever so frequent in the early days of a relationship. I persisted and I wore him down. We were together for 4 years, and Ron's fears were unfounded. He was intent on consoling me.
I'm really not too worried.
Ron said in one of our last conversations. His voice was so calm and full of promise and expectation that it sounded as if he were planning his summer vacation.
I know I'll see a light when I start to go. I'll just keep walking toward the light.
If there is a light on the other side, it will be your reflection in a really big mirror, I told him. And there was this bright spark and smile. And that's what I see when I think of him. So I'm sitting in an oncologist's office on a recent Tuesday afternoon. Sunny, bright, just the right amount of wind, wisps of clouds that looked a lot like cotton candy. And in this waiting room, however, it was gray. Gray carpet, gray paint on the walls, gray utilitarian waiting room chairs that were meant to be sat in for no more than 30 minutes at a time. The elevator music, the background was gray. The air smelled gray. The collection of magazines was gray. Field of Stream, Popular Mechanics, Modern Maturity. Well, thank God I've learned to bring a book to the doctor's office. Eventually, the receptionist calls my name.
Clarendon Rossi,
I jump to my feet.
Dr. Verdona's ready for you.
I'm escorted into an exam room. After a few minutes, Dr. Verdona knocks on the door. Out of habit, I suppose, and he walks in.
Mr. Rossi?
He forces a smile, extends his hand, and out of habit, I shake it. Nice to meet you, I say to him. Big lie. His expression does not change as he sits across from him. He folds his hands in front of him, still forcing that same smile, and says,
Mr. Rossi, you're in a bit of a fix.
Calculated, measured pause punctuates his delivery.
You're going to die.
My first thought was, interesting bedside manner.
The pathology report on the lymph node biopsy conclusively shows that you have a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that usually doesn't respond to chemotherapy. However, if you'd like to try a course of chemo, I'd be more than happy to arrange that. It might extend your survivability by as much as a year or so.
This guy is still smiling. I can't believe it. Miss America contestants could take lessons from him. I wonder how much time I have left, so I asked Dr. Verdona, who doesn't hesitate a second.
6 to 12 months, maybe a little longer.
And he's still smiling as he says,
I'm really very sorry.
big lie. And then I get up to leave, but not before I say thank you, which is yet another lie. You know, I suppose some people get so used to imparting bad news that it's almost like reading the weather. It'll be partly sunny tomorrow, dry with a high in the 80s, and oh, by the way, you have 6 months to live, and have a nice day. Jillian is the one who first called me about the biopsy results. She didn't say much, I didn't ask. Like I said, I haven't heard her laugh much lately. When I went to see Dr. Verdona, I had a pretty good idea of what was up. I wasn't expecting anything else. Jillian got the report from the tumor board and called me. Every time I hear the term tumor board, all I can picture is a bunch of variously shaped mounds of ill-mannered flesh sitting around a walnut conference table. Anyway, I answered the phone and I think she was crying. Jillian, are you okay?
Oh yeah, it's my allergies. They're driving me nuts today.
I'm not sure I believe her.
I got the biopsy report back from the lab. You need to have a consult with the oncologist. I'm going to refer you to one I know. Not very warm and fuzzy, but he knows his stuff.
So she gives me Dr. Smile's number.
Call him, all right?
Big sniffle. I wait for her to finish blowing her nose. Sure. I'll call him right now. Did you see what just happened right there? Right there. That part where I didn't ask Zoe any questions. She says I got the biopsy report back from the lab and need to have a consult with the oncologist. And I don't ask any questions. Notice that I never once asked Jillian for any specific information regarding that report. That was no accident. There are no accidents. You see, I knew, I had a sense, I had a feeling. I am going to die. You know, every time I say that out loud, it gets a little easier. It's become so easy, in fact, that recently a friend accused me of having adopted a cavalier attitude toward death. And I thought to myself, yeah, why not? Sounds healthy to me. Chemo. Another 9 to 12 months? What's the point? My brothers and sisters and friends have been urging me non-stop to do chemo. I've been deluged with phone calls, emails, and even though I do have caller ID, and even though I know where the conversation will eventually go, yes, I answer the phone. I guess I understand just how frustrating it is to be on the other end of the situation. So they call, these minions of hope, begging me to reconsider and do whatever it takes to live. They are convinced that I'm taking this fatalistic approach toward the rest of my life. I suppose, in a way, I have. No, not fatalistic. Not fatalistic at all. Realistic. I have been unable to effectively convey how I feel about this topic. I just don't see the point in going through a miserable 9 months of chemo, of puking, of losing my hair, of feeling like shit, of having no energy, just to extend my temporary use of this body for another 9 to 12 months. You know, come to think of it, the only person who really hasn't gone out of her way to talk me into doing chemo is my mother. I've always had this tenacious sense of persistence in getting things done or moving forward in my life and of making great strides. And I think that's just exactly why I can't bring myself to feel terribly depressed now that my number is soon to be up. I left very few things undone and unsaid. I know I will leave behind many reminders that I was once on the planet. I know that my students carry a part of me inside of them. And yet, you know, a friend of mine called last week, begging me to do chemo, bawling his eyes out over the phone, begging me to try to get well. He confessed that he had always been in love with me and that he couldn't imagine a world without me. That really stopped me in my tracks. In the middle of the night, I wake up thinking, will I ever love again? Will I ever be loved again? The love thing is something that I think a lot about during these nocturnal introspections. I just sit in bed and I feel my heart aching to be held again, to feel arms wrapped tightly around me. miss that. I will miss the smells that come with being in a relationship. Your lover's hair, their skin, chest, the tastes. I will miss hearing the words and the glances that lovers share in the darkness and in the light. I will miss the knowing glances exchanged in public places. I will miss spooning. I will miss someone yelling at me in the bathroom because I'm taking too much time. I will miss going to the refrigerator for a bite of a favorite leftover, only to not find it because my boyfriend ate the last of it and didn't let me know. I will miss holding hands, nibbling earlobes, hearing my name spoken in breathless clips of passion, and in quiet corners of everyday experiences. Not too long ago, I was feeling pretty lonely and sad in the wash in a major torrent of self-pity, and I went for a walk. And along the way, I passed this local bookstore, which is enlightened enough to carry many of the available gay and lesbian publications, which are always free, and which, out of force of habit, I usually pick up. So I do. Pick them up, that is. So later that day, I browsed through them. Let's see, boring, turn page. Boring, turn page, yawn. And then, wham. I see this ad for massages, wink, wink, by Trevor. And included in the ad is this lovely photo of this guy who happens to be nearly perfect physical features in silhouette. Whoa, baby, even in silhouette, whoa, baby. So I call Trevor, a name which I am sure is not his own, and I schedule a massage, wink, wink. Well, I've never had a massage, wink, wink, but I'm thinking, what the hell do I have to lose? Of all the times I thought about doing something a bit daring and didn't, this is one time I want to do something. So just before Trevor arrives, I get these terrible icks, and I dial the cell phone number to cancel, and I hear his cell phone ring, not in the receiver of my phone, but on the other side of my front door. And then my doorbell rings. I hang up the phone and open the door, and there he is. Oh my holy God, and whoa, baby. Trevor, he's amazingly beautiful. I have lost my ability whatsoever to speak. He keeps smiling at me. Such a smile, too. I somehow overcome my fear, and I ask him to come in. Well, it was a wonderful, warm experience. It was 2+ hours of hugging and touching and just for the entire time, Trevor treated me like I was the only other person on the planet. And whether he truly cared or not really didn't matter to me. Talk that he was not a particularly intelligent, well-read guy. The massage, wink, wink, that was great. I think I enjoyed asking, is this his full-time job? And something tells me that these questions he finds not only unusual, but somewhat humorous.
No, not really. I'm a full-time med student.
He goes on to explain that this is how he is working his way through med school. Amazing.
You think so? Really?
Oh, let's face it, it goes a bit beyond waiting tables at the Olive Garden. Have you picked a specialty yet?
Geriatrics.
I spurred out a bit of laughter. oh, geriatrics. Why geriatrics?
Well, that way I'll be sure that I'm always the youngest and prettiest person in the room.
Are you serious? Well, I always manage to be the youngest and prettiest person in the room, as long as I'm the only person in the room. At some point, Trevor asked me how I heard about him and why I called. You know, just making chit-chat, so I tell him. Well, I just found out that I have cancer. I've got about 6 months to live, and I've never had a massage, and I was just spending the day wallowing in self-pity, so I thought this might make me feel better and cross off one more item from my list of things I've never done. I prepare myself for the inevitable stream of sympathetic pronouncements and hollow offers. The perfunctory, oh, I'm really sorry, or, oh, that's too bad, or, is there anything I can do? Anything? So, what could someone do for me if they could do anything? Well, hell, let's see. Send me on an around-the-world cruise. Get me tickets to see Hairspray. Front row orchestra, please. Promise me I'm not going to sober. But no, I get none of that from Trevor. He just looks at me with a matter-of-factly asks me.
How many more items are there on that list of yours?
Not too many. See the Supreme Court in session. Visit London. Smoke pot.
You've never been stoned?
Never.
Oh, come on.
Why, you don't believe me? I have no motivation to lie to you.
It's too bad you didn't tell me that on the phone. I would have been happy to oblige.
What? Trevor just smiles. Another absolutely beautiful smile. Intoxicating smile. Do you know how easy it is to get emotionally drunk on intoxicating smiles? You see, Trevor, I used to be this absolutely no drugs poster child that Nancy Reagan would have been proud to call one of her own. At one point in my life, I used to be fond of saying that if a person can't get high off of life, then there must be something wrong with their life. Now, Trevor gets this strange, contemplative look on his face. He's thinking. Takes several long swallows from a tall glass of ice water I gave him earlier. Carefully puts the glass down.
Well, if that's the case, I hope that whatever is wrong with my life never gets fixed.
Trevor sits down next to me, deliberately, as if he had measured the distance between us and needed to be exactly that close and no farther away. It was a deliberate, intimate act. We sat almost facing each other. He was so close to me that when he spoke, I could feel his breath on my cheek. He took my hands and held them between his. This was getting a bit too serious. I mean, really, this was supposed to be one of my last
massage, wink, wink. I wanted to say something witty. I needed some breathing room. My mind was racing. And as if Trevor could sense that I was about to make my attempt at regaining control of the conversation, he gently placed his right hand over my mouth.
6 months is really not much longer than a bunch of heartbeats. A few thunderstorms. Several amazing sunsets. For these next 6 months, don't just live your life. Reach out and grab it. Hold on to it.
I think I have a weak grip. Trevor takes my hand in his and he squeezes. I think he's about to make a joke about weak grips.
I'd really like to kiss you. May I kiss you?
I don't say anything. I'm in a little state of shock. I don't know what to say. I'm thinking, hell yes, but nothing's coming out. I keep searching his eyes for a reason. There must be a reason. I need a reason. And while I'm searching and looking, before I know it, I hear myself saying, that would be nice.
For years, my life was a mess. Despair, wasted time. I forced myself to change. Since then, I've drifted through life on breezes of hope and landed on the one inescapable truth. That life is to be lived until life is to be through. And then it is through. Being in medicine has helped me see this. I see lots of endings.
My cynicism found its way through my thoughts. Come on, I thought no one this pretty could possibly be so deep. I was about to cynically dismiss his outlook with a snippy laugh. I looked into his eyes. For the first time in a long time, things were starting to make sense. Who is this guy I'm thinking? Who are you?
He removes his driver's license from a wallet and shows it to Clarendon.
Your name really is Trevor.
Clarendon reaches for his wallet, and just as he is opening it, Trevor reaches and closes it for him as he shakes his head.
My treat.
I'll say. I'm not sure for how long, but we just sat there. I suddenly realized I've become keenly aware of just how short 6 months really is. And then, just as I was unsure what to say next,
The world will be a far less interesting place when you go. Don't wait too long until you take care of some of those items on your list.
well, I know how to get to London, and I think I can find a Supreme Court building, but as far as the...
I think I just might be able to help you with that one.
here I am, faced with an interesting prospect of my own design. What do? I take my time considering the possibilities. Maybe next time.
Oh. So there is going to be a next time?
Clarendon takes a joint off a small table, puts it in his mouth, and lights it. He takes a long drag, exhales.
My turn to just smile.
End of play.
Very nice. Do you want to say a few words to the camera at all, Guil?
Huh?
You want to say anything to John here while we're recording?
Well, we could be here together to wish him well if you want. That would be kind of
Sure.
nice.
Gotta put this on because I'm freezing.
No, it is chilly in here,
It's
isn't it?
very cold in here.
I thought you guys would be hot under the light.
John, are you on? Are we on?
Yep.
That's it. Come on down. To introduce you to your friends, mine, coming into place, not Ron Williams, who is also the director, along with his lovely wife, Debbie Williams, who is co-directing and playing the role of Jillian and myself, you know, and of course this beautiful hunk next to me, by the name of Bruce Linser, who played Trevor. And we are wishing you a speedy recovery and good health, my dear friend, and hope that maybe one time we'll actually get to meet you.
Get to do this for you.